He did last time. We'd like to open our meetings with the prayer and pledge. The Honorable Taco Taylor will lead us in the prayer and pledge. If you'd like to join us, please do.
Dear Lord, we just thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for all your many blessings, Lord. We just ask you, Lord, to have your hand upon this district, Lord, and let all the decisions made today glorify you, Lord. And we just thank you for the rain that we've received, Lord, and we just pray for these students and staff, Lord, that are getting a much needed break, Lord, and just have your hand over them and protect them through the summer. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call this budget workshop to order. Mr. Taylor, we have the agenda in front of us. What is your recommendation?
I recommend approval.
Move we adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Mr. Taylor.
Carmichael, if you'd like to take it.
Start. Team is all on the front row here. They've got my back and they've got things to say on their part of the slide. We really probably should start calling this maybe the state of the district because it's more than just a budget workshop. So we want to start by just looking.
I have a question for you. I'm sorry. Can we cut those on? The other monitors? That way we
I'm
want
sorry.
to-
Yes,
We want to turn our back to you. We want to look at your.
I got you.
We want to look at you while we also.
Eye contact.
And if you would, you might as well go ahead and cut the other
Okay.
two on do for the presentations later. I'm so sorry about the interruption.
No problem. No problem. So we wanted to look at just for a minute at
I think this one went back off on me.
Okay.
the 2021 school year.
You're not holding your mouth right.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Life is good.
It is. LG. There we go. Okay. So
Thank you.
we want to take just a second to look back at the previous year and our accomplishments. And of course, we know that this year was the big ticket item. We hope now that they will be gone, the 21, 22 year. We won't have COVID-19 anymore. So it was a challenging year. We started the year with the innovative learning education, and that's Ms. Arnold's arena, and she's going to talk to that.
We started with 883 students that indicated they wanted to do ILE. We ended the year with 378. 67 of those were seniors. The district has made an effort through the schools and the district office to contact every single ILE student to let them know it is not going to be an option next year. They still have 3 other virtual options, or they can homeschool, but they'll automatically be re-enrolled back into their traditional school. It would just be helpful if we knew that. And so the ones we've not heard from, we plan to do home visits and go door to door to try to find who they are. At this time, there are 77 that have not confirmed what their preference is. 8 students indicated they're gonna go to homeschool. 8 said they plan to attend a virtual school of some kind. Some of them said that they're gonna stay in the district virtual, others plan to go to full-time virtual. Florida Virtual Full-Time gets to decide if they will or will not accept students. So some of them may change in the process. The remaining are planning to go back to the traditional environment. A few indicated they're moving to other districts. But ILE will not be ILE as we know it next school year. And the parents have been sent links through Remind, phone calls. The schools were asked to make a personal contact with each student's parent, not just an email, not a recording, but personally contact to find out if they have questions or what their plans are for next year.
Do we have any data on what was the passing rate for the ILE students?
I do not have that information. I think grades were finalized last week, so I think we could probably pull that. What we also don't have is, we didn't have, our tracking was a current enrollment, so there could be students that were with us, left, came back and forth, and maybe they're traditional now. So we wouldn't have a way of knowing immediately. We could do some in-depth, but to figure out what the pass rate was for some of the floaters, so to speak. But we could get it just would take a while.
Well, only if it would be valuable to the district in future planning, but it wouldn't be too much to get a ballpark figure.
Okay.
It'd probably be something we would want to know.
Sure.
I think we've got a couple of screens down now. So after COVID, we are being inundated with stimulus money. These are new acronyms that we're getting used to. These are different pots of money coming through the federal government. We've already received the ESSER-1 and some of the gear monies, you'll see that. ESSER-2, we've gotten an advanced portion of that, and the ARP, we haven't even gotten there yet. You're going to be amazed at what the top money that's coming our way. It's just flowing down, and we want to capture it before it vanishes on us.
Before they're broke.
So our first pots that came, we call them ESSER-1 and the gear monies. This was the first in the Trump administration monies that came pretty quick to us. The district, we collected like 3.7 million, and it came in 15 different pots. I mean, we got to track 15 different individual, and part of it was specific, like reading, civics, culinary. So if you can imagine, we've divvied them up between most everybody, and they all have a role in keeping account of it. Most of them, the gear monies will expire June 30th. A few continue rolling forward. If any of y'all have anything to add, I'll circle my slides.
On this 3,762,000, all right, and all the different allocations, are we just gonna divide it up by the number of allocations that we got?
Well, they specifically, there's dollar amounts to each allocation.
Okay.
I just didn't break it
They
all.
do it, okay, they do,
Right.
okay.
The biggest chunk was in that, like the COVID relief, PPE, we paid for substitutes when teachers were out for COVID, and then as the monies, as we get more money, ESSER-2, we're able to pick up some things that these don't qualify for. So the ESSER-2, they really wanted us to spend ESSER-1 before we got to ESSER-2. And we had done what they asked, we did what they asked. It spent our allocation, not completely, but enough that we got an advanced funding. But the criteria was if you got advanced funding, you had to spend it by September 1. $2 million, 4 months to come up with spending that kind of money. And those that didn't comply, they did get the advanced funding, they get the 2 years. So we were on the FADS conference with that, and of course every district that got advanced funding was complaining about that. But they did allow us to go all the way back to the beginning of the COVID, March 13th of 2020, to pick up anything that was eligible, and they included the air conditioning. And I think every air conditioner in this district has had issues, and that's been a big project that Kyle's undertaken. So we reached back to get everything that we could. A lot from our sales tax, hurricane monies, the LCI money, and a little bit in general fund. If it qualified to go into that ESSER pot, we've moved it. So it puts the money, frees the money back up in these areas. That's good for us. These are ones that we can control and set our own projects for.
And we don't have to have it spent by that time, right? Or,
The 2 million we do.
right, but like this?
This rolls
That's
forward.
ours.
Right.
This is ours.
Right.
The air conditioning stuff has to be spent by September?
Well, the ESSER-2 which that is this pod. In ESSER 2, they allowed the air conditioning. Of course, we had one project, Vernon Middle, the big project was going, so we've moved that particular project there, but you can't get a bid, you can't get a job on one of these, so I think there's another piece of ESSER 2, besides the $2 million that wasn't advanced funding, that we'll probably get to continue to use for, air conditioning. We're just trying to capture everything for that $2 million, for that deadline that's coming up.
Was that Vernon High project, was it able to?
Well, the Vernon High was part of that hurricane recovery.
Okay.
We spent money there, so I moved it. And that hurricane recovery money is really, there's no real strings, that's the board.
But now we're talking about the AC there, that big job.
Right.
Okay.
A lot of that, I was able to, if it happened, anything paid after the March 10th or 13th, whatever that date was in March, I was able to move.
Well, that was a
to
big
this.
project, so.
That's good. Where are we on the air conditions? Are we working on them being replaced?
As fast as we can. There's lead times that are from here to there to get stuff in. For instance, over here at the pre-K, part of the stuff will be in 4 weeks. Other parts of it, 15 weeks. So that's slowing you down. Everybody's going after the same stuff with the same dollars.
Yeah.
It's good to be in the air conditioning business, right?
Plus, there's supply chain issues.
Right.
Right.
There's supply chain issues coming down to the local vendors, anybody else wants something, can't get this stuff.
So right now, we've got about $600,000 worth in progress. Hopefully, we'll get a lot of that into the ESSER 2 first pot. We just have a purchase order that you'll approve tonight for computers. A little over $300,000 that we're going to be able to use out of that pot. We'll be able to buy a few more clear touch boards and some switches. And anything that we don't, I may use some of that mental health that came out of the general fund, we can reclassify it over. We'll do our best to get all that $2 million free up those funds.
That reclassified mental health, would that include salaries?
Right. Our $2 million. We're paying for two. Our first two we pay out of our mental health monies that we get out of the FEFP, and then we have two that come from another source.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking about the ones from the FEFP. That'll just keep rolling forward. So the ESSER 2 pot was almost $4.5 million, and the advances was $2 million, so we still have 2.4. And then they did designate portions of that as to how we'll have to spend it. Non-enrollment assistance, looking for students that have not re-enrolled. Academic assistance, that'll be for learning recoveries. Technology, I think we can get more I don't know if we'll need devices, but we can spend it on the connectivity, things like that. And then the undesignated, I'm thinking, still have the criteria that we can use for air conditioning. So we've had a lot to do with. This has been unusual. The pendulum has certainly swung since 2007-8 when we were scrounging to keep rolling the wrong way.
But neither one of those fund balances, if you allocate them during that date, certain, they can't be swung into your general fund or your undesignated fund balance for a whole.
No.
They have to go out the door.
No, and if we don't get that, they told us at DOE if we did get that advanced funding spent, that it would swing back to the legislative piece, and they were thinking it would be reallocated back to the districts, but we don't want to take any chance. They may take our part and divvy it between everybody if we leave it, and there's no guarantee we're going to get it back. So the tech college received their own stimulus monies, 1.1. They were able to start a rapid credentialing program. Student financial assistance, they were able to give every enrolled student, a portion to help just with living expenses and tuition, whatever. All right, this is Mr. Troy's screen.
All right, so this slide highlights some of the indicators that are looked at by the FLDOE regarding our students with disabilities. So you can see there that we're continuing to move the needle and making good gains. And as a result, I'm most proud of the last line there, that the school district met state requirements, which means we were an effective ESE program. What that means is FLDOE doesn't come pay you a visit. 2 years ago, we were paid a visit by them. And I'm fine with getting visits for commendations, but when it's for needs intervention, that's not as pleasant. So the staff at the schools, the teachers, the paras have done a phenomenal job, and we continue to see gains there in regards to dropout rate, grad rate, and then our students with disabilities in regular class placement. So that's just some of the indicators that are on what's called our LEA profile, our LEA determinations, and again, it's kind of the report card that the state uses to assess the ESE program in the schools. So,
Are all the ESE programs, like at the high school and the middle school, are they inclusion classes or go in the regular
correct.
class
So
and
that,
the teacher goes?
correct. It's a support facilitation model with a student with disabilities in there with non-disabled peers and 2 teachers. And then students that are eligible can be considered for WAVE. Student with significant cognitive disability, parents have to consent to that placement. And then, so we're up to around 63, I believe was the last count at WAVE, which when we started that, we were hoping for 35. So it's been a big hit as well. And they provide an awesome service to the students and the families. But it's been good. It's a good program, and we've got a lot of good people that are a part of it. So that's what that's.
So those numbers are from 2 years ago?
They lag, and so the regular class placement is current data, grad rate and dropout rate lag a year.
So the pandemic numbers would not be in there?
Last year's pandemic numbers, yes, and that kind of helps because there was a bonus there.
That's why I was.
So we'll take every opportunity we can get to produce a graduate.
Okay.
That's what we're in the business of doing.
That's why I was asking. So
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Most ESC students got one.
Yeah, ESE students can be considered for a waiver
Anyway.
regardless of COVID or not. So
Okay.
it's an IEP team decision.
So you can see up here the high school industry certifications in the middle school. Some of them are digital tool certificates, and then some of them the Internet Business Associate is a certification. It's a high school credit and a certification. Our numbers were down about 100 compared to the year before. This is data from the pandemic year where we shut down in March. So considering the fact that they were out of classes starting in March, so some of them never were able to return and test. We had some programs that didn't test at all, that are testing this year. And so we hope that these numbers will come back up, but considering what we dealt with the year that these numbers are from, this is a lag year, I felt like we did very well. So we received money this year based on last year, or the 1920 certification data. And we're adding some new programs and certifications, hopefully, in reinserting some that weren't done the year before. So I think our numbers will go up a lot.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
In the 1920 school year, we did not have any school grade due to COVID because we didn't do the testing that year. So there is no report card for that year. For this year, the scores are not going to be released until June 30th for all students. And then we will get the scores sometime in July as a school grade, but the district will determine if we do or do not want that school grade. So there will be some schools that will say they don't want a school grade, It will still be public record and it will still be available, but they do not have to take the school grade if they choose not to. The calculation will be the exact same as it has been, but DOE can't release it without it being considered public information. But they will go ahead and calculate it for us before we decide if we do or do not want it. So we don't have to, we can appeal it if we find something that we think was an error in the way it was calculated. We can appeal it if we would like. So this year, the school grades will not be here until August, which is really late. Any questions about that?
Is there any stipulation if we say we don't want the grade? I mean, is there any?
We are very hopeful that we may actually have some improvements or actually schools that stay the same. We've been a B district for several years, so we wouldn't want to not take that and wear it proudly if we get to be. Third grade scores will be the first ones released, and that usually is a little bit of an indicator for us. I expect those probably this week. They always come out a little bit earlier, but we would want it if it's good. If it's at least as good as what it was, I don't think we would want to turn it down. But we're hopeful. We had I don't have the exact number of the turnout, but we did have a good turnout. Our ILE students that tested, there were several that still did not want to come and test, and that's to be expected, but it was not a large number of students, so that was good.
Why did they get that option of not testing?
Because we had to provide the ILE option, which was the innovative learning, and we couldn't require them to be on campus. So they had the option of coming to the school or not. And I will say our schools are very creative. They tested some students privately so that they wouldn't have to be among the population of the other students. We had altered times so that we could accommodate families that wanted to come at a specific time. We tried our best to accommodate whatever it was that they had a concern for, but we still had some that refused to come. We also had some that were actually quarantined during the testing window. The state did open the window later, but that may have impacted just a few students, but we did have a couple of classes that we know were quarantined during the beginning of the window.
Did you have to have a certain percentage of the students tested before your scores could be used for school grades?
Correct. You have to have 90%.
Did we need that?
We don't know yet because it's not based on individual students. It's based on the actual test. So an 8th grader will take a reading, language arts, and a science, or excuse me, reading, math, and a science. That's 3 tests. So that student has 3 opportunities to be part of the denominator. So it's not just, did this one student come this one day? So it's a calculation across all the tests. So we don't, I expect that we'll be at 90% or higher because I don't think it was that many students that didn't come. Anything else?
You've got several slides.
Okay. Our grad rate, Troy had already mentioned, or Mr. Brown mentioned, that for the 1920 school year, those scores, those students didn't have to meet the testing requirement, but they still did meet the GPA and the credit requirement. So I believe the state saw an uptick, the district saw an even greater uptick, but that one year we do know, as well as this current year, but we won't get the grad rate until December for this last school year. But that will certainly be something to remember going forward as you look at the data over time. We have had 2 mental health counselors that have been hired for finishing their 3rd year. 2 more were hired this last school year, as well as 2 LPNs. If you look at the 1920 school year, we left in March, so our numbers look awfully similar to the 1920 school year, but the truth is we were out for about a quarter of the year. So I feel like that's a significant gain for us, that we've kept the numbers lower than they had been in the past. I have total cases and then I have total students, because we have had some students that have been Baker acted more than once, and I wanted you to see that it didn't always mean different students. Our LPNs have been trained to operate our telehealth equipment. through grant money, we are going to be able to purchase a telehealth machine, have one in every school. We've already been using it. Some of our teachers have used it to make their own appointments and telehealth with their own doctors. We've actually had, at the very end of school, we had a student whose parent was able to log in from their phone at a different location. The student was at the school, and they both were able to telehealth with the doctor, which is actually our hope, that we can help with medicine management without parents leaving work or students leaving school by using our equipment. So we're pretty excited about that. The VPK. We will be opening VPK at the building next door. The district saw a lag this past year in our numbers and enrollment. Part of that, I believe, is because we did not have a distance learning option for VPK. It was required for K through 12, but I don't know how you would even do a distance learning for VPK. So we kept it to the on-site students only. We did see this coming up year, we've already accepted our enrollment. We're on our 4th class that will be filled in the new pre-K program. We initially only planned to have 3, which is what we had at Kate Smith. And we weren't trying to, we just needed more space at Kate Smith. So, several of the centers have closed their VPK programs. Next school year will be the only VPK program in Washington County. So we're already planning for 4 in the new VPK center, and that's for the Chipley students. The Vernon students have 2 classes filled at this time. So we'll have a teacher on special assignment to oversee those programs. The Vernon teachers will still report to their principal, but the program will be through the VPK program, and Ms. Mitzi will be doing that. So.
You said we will be the only VPK program in Washington County?
That is correct.
Now, the daycares aren't having it anymore?
I was told that no daycare in Chipley or Washington County will be operating a program next year.
When did that happen, do you know?
This school year. They, this is coming up school year. They did have programs. I know one that had programs this last year, but they had trouble keeping the position filled. There's a specific requirement for that person to teach that class. And it can be a para, but they have to have extra credentials. So I understand why it's hard to get somebody, but the enrollment's 20 students to 1 teacher and 1 para, or 10 students to 1 teacher.
What kind of wait period is on that? Do we have any idea? For enrollment, wait period?
We opened up our wait list last Monday, so right now we don't have a wait list.
Okay.
We filled it up, and we would do our best to not have any wait list if possible. But they have to go through the Early Learning Coalition to get an approval that confirms the age of the child, and then they bring them to us for enrollment. We do have a summer program this year for VPK, which we've not had in many years. As a school district, we're required to have a summer VPK, but if you don't get anybody to sign up, then you can't have it. So we haven't had anyone sign up, and this year we actually have 2, I believe, that had signed up. I didn't check to see if they came today, but that program started today, and it's 200 hours in the summer. It's a lengthy program, but it's only for students entering kindergarten. So that's a new thing that we've had this year. Any questions about VPK?
Are we gonna have room for four classes?
We actually have room for 5 classrooms, but we have 4 very big classrooms that are freshly painted, or getting their fresh paint last week, and it looks
And air conditioned, that works.
And but the building is really actually going to be amazing. It's going to definitely hold the number of students and meet the needs of those kids.
Those 2, you talked about 2 students when you said the summer. Is that cost effective for 2 students because you're maybe using different funds?
The program allows, if you have fewer than 6 students, they pay you for up to 6. So even though we only have 2, we're still being funded for what they call a full class. And the VPK scores, the ratings come at the beginning of the kindergarten year, but the beginning of this year, they said we wouldn't count them for last year. And then right now, we don't have the 2021 scores yet because we won't get it until the fall when the students take the test in the first 30 days of kindergarten. It's actually a pretty innovative testing. The students can either screen touch, The directions don't allow them to go any further if they can't follow the directions of the program. So it's not what you often think of a computer-based testing, that some student has to sit and operate a keyboard. That's not how it works at all. They have their own headphones, and there's a check to make sure they understand what they're supposed to do. You may remember that you approved earlier this year, our employees will not have to pay for the wraparound care. We've gotten good feedback for that. We started it, I believe, in March or April, but if they're an employee in our district, then the wraparound care is $10 a day, and they're not having to pay that, no matter what position they hold.
How many do we have?
It's about half of the students actually stay the full day. I can get
How
you.
many of our employees do we have that?
Oh, this year we had, where's Pam? Was it 12, 10, 12, something like that? Close to 12, I think. It might be 10, but I'm thinking that we had 9 in Chipley and 3 or 4 in Vernon. But that's a substantial bonus to that employee to be able to have their child at the school. So, oh, I don't use
So our sales tax collection.
I'm sorry, Lucy, may I ask a question? Didn't the legislature propose 3-year-olds voluntary?
Not yet.
Not yet?
They're going fast. Part of the state of Florida's 2030 plan is 3-year-old voluntary, 5-year-old mandatory. And then
4-year-old mandatory?
Yes. And then, but right now, it's actually voluntary for 5-year-olds. You want to make that mandatory.
That's
And what they also did was wrap early childhood back under DOE. And there have been huge changes coming to DOE in early childhood.
Would that be for next year?
No, I don't think so. I don't believe they have enough time to make those changes. Mandatory enrollment doesn't start until a student has to be 6 prior to February. So they're eligible from September 1 when they turn 5, but they don't have to come until they're 6. So you're going to hear mandatory enrollment down to 5. That's because it's currently 6. But most parents send their children when they turn 5 on or before September 1. But they would have to change that law first. And then they also, to be able to get a 3-year-old, I don't think it would be possible for this upcoming year. I would hope not. See how that's possible. That's a lot of car seats for buses.
Would Kate Smith, would this facility be enough for all 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds?
Probably not. We'll have to expand
I don't think.
I knew that bill was coming up, and I wondered how we were gonna.
The early learning, it used to be at
Good
DOE,
deal.
but then it left and now it's come back. So it's not brand new for it to be there.
Okay, so our sales tax collections through the month of May, for 10 months, just a little over $1 million. And we,
Through 10 months?
it's actually, we're on track to collect more this year than we did last year. I have a spreadsheet, but,
This inflation keeps going, you're gonna get it in 3 months.
yes. I haven't.
Multiplier goes up every time you spend more money on a piece of bread.
I think that's probably what we're seeing, the first few months of this year, it's up. You building materials and what have you, and so anyway, the district is getting some benefit from that.
And we appreciate it. Thank you for everybody going to Walmart.
So the top, we use the funds, we just want to point out the top 3 that are bold, that, we spent them, but then I was able to move the expenditures to the ESSER 2, so that frees money back up to be used for.
The teachers love those clear touch boards.
I think his next purchase will complete all the classrooms, the original boards that were at K. Smith, the polo boards, they'll all now have the clear touch.
I think we talked about putting this in the newspaper at one time, and I don't think we've done that yet. Sorry, I missed it. Could we kind of make a note to wait, even this slide, enough for that would be just a mention Maybe if we can remember to talk to Carol if she comes to the board meeting, this would be a good thing
It's
to
a
put
good
in.
idea. So this is our property tax levy. I believe we did a 1.15 last year, if I'm not mistaken. You know, we can only buy buses from this pot of money. We kind of reserve that. That's our big ticket item usually for that. We are, I believe it's about 250,000 that we're matching Kim's grant that she got from the DOJ for fencing and security. We had a match piece, and these funds are going partially for that. And she's on the back, didn't get to come, she came in late, but if you want to address anything about where you are on that project of fencing.
It's pretty much what we had talked about before. You'll saw the samples of the fencing that we have over here. Been in contact with them. They are going to, at this point, if the weather will allow us, all the materials have been ordered and should be arriving in the district within the next 2 weeks. And they're guaranteeing us, as long as we don't have some kind of unusual weather event that will not allow them to complete, that by the time school starts, they should be finished with the fencing portion. Now, that's not going to be secure lobbies yet, and that's not going to be some of the sidewalk stuff that we're going to be doing, especially at Vernon High School. But you have to attach doors to fence and not fence to doors, so it may have to stop at that one section there on the sidewalk so that those storefronts can be put in, and we'll have that knocked out. I know we talked about fencing out there, but I think we talked about the last security meeting that we talked about the radios that were in the district. And right now our focus at Dwayne and I have been working tirelessly with Mr. Taylor and the Sheriff's Department and the 911 Operations Center so that we can get in compliance with Alyssa's law. Alyssa was one of the young ladies that was killed in the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas tragedy. So what we have to do is we have to have some type of mobile alert system in place for every staff member. There's a list of about 10 that DOE Office of Safe Schools has approved. We can use anybody we want, but if they're not on that list, DOE won't give us a kickback and they don't give the money to our district. We have to let them know who we're going with, and they will send them a payment for what we purchase or what we're going to be using. So it's basically going to be a mobile app of some type. They all look alike. They just have different bells and whistles and colors on the screens for each of the companies that have these. And we have 3 that are in our top 3 category that we have researched, and we're going to have another meeting soon with our last. We've had multiple meetings with all of them, but with our last vendor in the next week or so that the Sheriff's Office and the 911 dispatch and the school board can make sure that we're all in agreement with how that's going to roll out. So it's a partnership between all of us, and we've been working with all those entities together. We are also in the process of doing all the PPEs, which is safety, but it's ESSER 2, and thanks to Ms. White, you're seeing about a third of what we've purchased back there. All of our classrooms will have a ton of stuff. We're not ordering a bunch of masks, things like that, but what we are ordering is things like wipes that they can, like a Clorox wipe type something that they can clean their classrooms, alcohol wipes that they can clean their keyboards with. Students can have an individual little packet to clean keyboards. We're talking about like a Lysol spray, if you will. We're talking about some PPEs with some masks for those students who still want those students and or staffs that still want them, and or the little ones with the glasses with the screen over it. But the majority of people are not wearing the mask anymore, and I'm not saying that it's not important. I'm just saying that we're going to have those resources available. We're just not spending a lot of our ESSER 2 at this point until they're necessary again, because we still have a stockpile of what we had originally ordered or received from the state. So we have a lot of those things going on. We're also creating Stop the Bleed kits that'll be in all the classrooms. Instead of having just a couple in each of the buildings, we're going to have one in each of the classrooms. And along with that, I'm adding a CPR kit for youth and or adults, so that there'll be a respirator mask that'll be independent to the classroom for whomever needs to use it there. So that's going into place. All of this will be in place before school starts. We are working with our secure lobbies with our construction manager, and we are working on that, but it's just like Kyle mentioned earlier, it's all about waiting for materials to be available and waiting for time to get everything done, because everybody's doing the same thing at the same time. So that's pretty much where we are with that.
So potentially, you may receive another pot of money, and superintendent may really be the one that knows more about this pot than the rest of us.
The state of Florida, every school district in the state got a minimum of $2 million, or was allocated $2 million, and it flowed through the local health departments. The key was they had about a week to turn it around, prepare budgets, and do everything like that. And they were very open to lots of ideas, and so our goal will be, we're going to have RNs that will take care of all testing and contact tracing, one in Chipley and one in Vernon. They're willing to pay for canopies. They still have to get the budget we submitted to them approved, but once that budget is approved, it should be probably by June 30th is what they were hoping, because the money is only there for 13 months. That will also give us more access for air conditioners. We can do things even with the school security piece about restricted access to make certain we have the proper materials up there to stop any type of germ, and then making certain quarterly PPE for staff and students. So that's another $2 million that we have that's hanging, that we're waiting to see what happens.
Of course, we still have some of our insurance recovery proceeds, and what do you think right now? The playground equipment. And we'll be buying new equipment for the new pre-K center soon. And we have the food service fund balance that we're having to spend, and Mr. Brandon, Chris.
We recently purchased a tilt skillet for Vernon High School to serve at a greater capacity. Recently, DOE approved the purchase of culinary equipment for our boardroom, and so that was through the Perkins funds. And so I'm excited about that, because now our Vernon culinary and our Chipley High School culinary programs are going to be able to serve from right here. And so we'll have equipment purchased for that for the boardroom over here.
I think you're further down there.
Yeah, okay. I'll be back.
So these are some of the projects that we have going forward into the new school year. Of course, I think we've mentioned them all. The bus barn is under construction. I think we've mentioned everything else there. Now we take a look at our FTE. Don't have my specs on too good that we'll see if they're too good, but we're down just a little bit from in comparison to the 1920 year. Speak to any of that, superintendent, or?
One of the things we're watching, if you see that McKay Family Empowerment, both those programs that are right there, the state revamped their system of those programs, and they rolled them all into one. So we'll see how in the future that starts affecting us, if it's even more. We'll probably have to have a workshop on that, because it's a pretty intense thing that is there. The numbers you're looking at, 2021, the ILE students are established and directed back to their home schools, home zone schools. The weighted FTE that dropped the 95 right there is related more to the COVID piece. And there's differences between weighted FTE, because that's where you have the levels of services required, and your regular just head count. So we have a head count of 3,300 But by the time you start weighting the different programs in there, it'll go up to 4,300. Our homeschool students, not surprisingly, they are increasing. And we will see again as we roll into the fall that number goes up even more, because that is an option as opposed to those who are concerned with COVID from back. They can go the homeschool route. The numbers to the right is the funding that is affected to us by those students being there. The state versus local funding that we have is going on right there. You can see that we are increasing slightly for our own local, but that is good. It means we have growth within the county itself and our tax bases. Taxable value is, the 21-22 is the numbers the state worked off of. And so now we're still over $1 billion and we're increasing on that. It's all Guild today, and that's a steady, when you get your trim notices, you may see that's why that's going up. The $41,000 that we pay all our new instructors that come in, the additional funds that was in the legislative pot this year will increase that up by a very minimum amount. They're giving us the same $560,000 they did last year, plus a 20% increase on top of that. And so as we get into negotiations and we block that out, we'll see what happens. They also changed the rules that if you're only given a smaller amount because of the amount is only the 10% increase, they then tie, and it's more complicated, but they then tie any increase that is given to your grandfathered schedule and how much you can give and how everything. And your new teachers on performance have to get a certain percentage increase above that. Our health insurance premium is slowly, we're seeing what's happening. We're able to do for the 8 pay periods, which we just did not have our employees have to contribute. Those who are in the family did extremely well. Very proud that we could do that. And looking into the future and what we're doing, we've pretty much already established we're not looking at any kind of increase in the health insurance rates. So that's part of the negotiations. But that will start in the summer pretty quickly with the health insurance. What you're looking at here on these calcs, and we'll make these comparisons back and forth. Lucy, if you'll jump to that next page. Yes, that emergency order funding, the $1,075,000 they gave us, that is what the grace they gave us with our ILE students. And so they did a calculation and said, if we hadn't agreed to do all this, you would have been cut by $1 million. So the difference that is there, they're saying all these students will come back. There's a huge unknown that's out there. It's just something we have to do.
One other thing to notice is that this is the first time I can remember in a number of years that the class size reduction piece has come down, 324,000. I'm not sure what drove that.
So while the state will tell you they had record budget fundings for education, they took care of us well, their actual increase in federal state funding is $30,000. These are projected revenues. These are what's built into the budget that Carmichael has done. You can see where I had mentioned about the reserve for the McKay and Family Empowerment. That's an in and out, $327,000. They're still working out the fine points on that in Tallahassee as to come to that. So our projected revenue coming up to the new year is $28 million. And when you throw in those other programs that we have, transfer from capital, like for the property capital, that's the biggest, 231, and some of the other programs that we get, actually we're looking at about 29.5.
So this is going forward. One thing to note, I did a separate line on utility costs there. We were notified with the merger that Gulf Power is having. You could experience like an 18% increase. That was kind of a substantial change in the budget. Retirement rate didn't go up much. I think it was like 0.66%. And of course, we had about a 17% increase in property insurance premiums. $520,000.
So your total expenses as you go down through there comes up to 28,503,000. And then there's some other programs on there. That is using the class size reduction of 3.3. As Lucy said, that was a decrease that the state gave us last year.
We plan to use a portion of our roll forward in that class size fund balance. We've got a big summer going on, and Mr. Randa, would you?
It is our district's priority to provide two things: options and access. Options for all kids and access for all kids to learn. And as you can see, we have a variety of summer learning programs moving forward. We have our reading camp that's coming up, and all of these programs are starting simultaneously tomorrow, June 15th, and so from 8 to 2, and we have a QR code that's being prepared and ready to go, and we'll add more to it as we go along. And so you can use this by just pointing your camera to it, and parents will have easy access to it, and that way they don't have to go from one website to another. It's all right here at the QR code. Our summer STEM camp has been a great success. It started today, and Mr. Troy Rackley from Vernon High School, along with Lenora Henderson from Chipley High School, and also with our FSU PC professors are coming together at FPTC and having a STEM camp for 25 children. Today I walked in and I was able to see 25 children, smiling faces, and they were able to learn and delve into the STEM activities. Awesome program this week. Coming up, we have former NFL player LaVon Kirkland, who will be visiting us at Chipley High School and also at Vernon High School. We are proud of this because this is not only somebody, for the athletes at our school, but it's for anyone who really wants to be a part of it. He's going to be our motivational speaker, but he's going to be talking about our priority, which is education first, along with athletic empowerment.
When is that?
That is going to be June the 24th. And we cannot forget our summer lunch program. It started a week ago, June 7th, and it's going all the way to August the 5th, and it's through Monday through Thursday. And so it's from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We have one community site, and that is TJ Relac Activity and Enrichment Center, but both schools, Kate Smith and Vernon Elementary Schools, are serving lunches as well. And then we have the pickup from parents who desire to pick up lunches for their students.
Do you have the numbers on that? Just by
How many? So far, not yet, but soon. We just started, so we'll get it.
Lucy, what fund did allow us to do provide all the students with their books?
We're going to be able to use some Title I funds, I
It's
believe.
going to be used Title I? Okay. I didn't know where that was coming
And
in.
if ESSER can do any of it, we'll charge them out.
Okay.
We evaluate everything, try to get it in the pot that needs, it's a challenge when you've got that much. Title I has its rules about spending so much, but she's looking at potentially getting a waiver on the roll forward amount because of the availability of all these other federal funds, so.
Well, that's a wonderful thing for us to be doing because school stuff is expensive. Stop that.
Susan, you may know more about most of the stuff that's on this slide if you want.
So actually today, our ELA teachers, K through 12, all in different locations had a getting started training on their new ELA curriculum that will be put in place next year, along with our new ELA best standards that go in place next year. We are looking at putting in a new reading intervention program at the middle schools, hopefully. We also are starting a criminal justice class at the high school with, I think we've got 2 or 3 courses, or 2 or 3 classes to start at Chipley High School to get it started, and hopefully we'll expand to Vernon High School, maybe even be able to broadcast it and set it up through FBTC. But this will lead to a dispatcher certification, so we're looking forward to that. Mostly 9th graders will be in this class starting next year. And then the new BBK Center.
That's all that we have.
Mr. Taylor, you have anything else on that?
If you'd like, at the end of the regular board meeting, we can go into recess right now if you have questions or you want to go a little bit further or anything.
We have a time certain public hearing that we have to adhere to, starting at 5. So this meeting will be adjourned and we'll start promptly at 5 o'clock.